Boker Tov, today's daf is daf Ayin Beis in Ksubas, as we learned for Shlema for Yosef Azriel ben Chaim Michal and for Elazar ben Reuma. From the 2 dots, about 10 lines down on the page. We said a man who imposed all kinds of nedarim on his wife. He imposed it either she made the net and he confirmed it, or he made the netter in a way in which it would be chal, as we've discussed. So he has to give her a get and pay her ksuba because he's forcing her out of social circumstances, etc. It's not proper what he's doing. Okay, it's impossible to live that way. So he says, well, let's say the Mishnah said that if he forbade her from going to a wedding or going to a Beis Ovel, he should do that. But if he said because of some other reason, a valid reason, don't do that, then he's allowed to. What's the valid reason we're talking about? Let's say it was known that there were immoral people there. He said, don't go to that place because I know what kind of people are hanging around there, and that's going to be a bad influence. That's only if it was presumed there was a chazaka that there were bad people there. But just because he said it, he says, oh, I don't want you to go there. There's some bad reputation people there. He's not believed, and he has no power to do that unless it's well known that that's the situation. Let's say he said, okay, I'll break the netter. Al-Manasa, you go and tell such and such these particular like family secrets or something of that sort. If you tell them that, then I'll break the netter. So what's the big deal if she announces it, if she goes and tells the people those things? These are shameful things. In other words, he's going to embarrass her. He says, I'll break the netter if you go and tell these people such and such, such and such. Shameful things that are embarrassing to the family. You shouldn't do that. So again, if he made that kind of a condition, also that is something that's not livable by, and it does that. All these things he has to give her a divorce and pay her ksuba. Or he tells her, he says, listen, he forswears her from let's say visiting a family or going to a Beit Mishta or Beis Ovel, and he tells her that I'll allow you to do it only if you fill up and spill it out into the garbage. What do we mean by that? You fill it up and spill it out into the garbage. So, but what's wrong with doing that? We're not talking about filling up a pail of water and spilling it out. It's speaking about here, we're talking about if this is it's a hint at, like a way that you can, the hint at what he's really talking about is they should have intimacy, and then she should scatter it. In other words, right after Bia, was a way of, he didn't want to have children, so he says run around so that the Shifma Zera falls out of her, and it can't be niklat, she won't conceive. So if he makes that kind of a bad condition, then also he has to divorce her and give her ksuba. She wants to have children, and for some reason he says do this. She should fill her belly up with shikva zera and then scatter it out by running around. That's what we mean over here. So it's like a lashon sak. It's a nice way of talking about intimacy and shikva zera in this way. Fill it up and spill it out. Masisa Brian the Bryce they learned to know it means quite literally. It means filling up pails of water and spilling it out. Masisa Tanashit Tamale Asara Kademaim. He tells her, okay, you can only go and visit, weddings and be social and visit houses of mourning if you fill up all these pails, 10 pails of water, and spill them out into the garbage. According to the first opinion, we're talking about bia, and we're talking about a way of contraceptive. That she should after every bia she should get up and run around and scatter the shikva zera. So I understand that's a valid reason for divorce. He wants to have children, and she wants to have children. He's trying to avoid it. Elamas nisa. But according to the Brisa, what's wrong if he tells her, okay, so fill up the water and spill it out into the garbage? My nafkamina. But let her do it. She looks like a fool. What kind of a person stands there, fills up the water, and then throws it into the garbage? Doesn't make any sense. She looks like an idiot. And if he's forcing her to embarrass herself, that's also a valid reason for divorce with paying ksiv. Amar of Kana. Let's say he imposes a net on her, for example, like by saying, Either she made the neder and then he confirmed it, or he made a neder, like we said before. We said the hano of your bia should be usher to me. So it means she can't have bia. They can't have bia. And the condition. What's the condition? If you go borrow household kitchen movable items from somebody else. She shouldn't borrow items from other friends. And she shouldn't lend those items to her friends. For example, enough of a kivra, a sifter and a sieve, or a chaim, a mill, a tanner, and oven, these portable ones that people borrow from one another. But he prohibits her from interaction, from having friends and neighbors. Yotzi, that's also a difficult thing to live with. That's considered affliction. She's going to be upset. The eating suba. Because they make her, they get that those kind of things by not participating with others, not lending your items or borrowing from others. People will give her a bad reputation among her neighbors. And among her neighbors, she's going to have a bad reputation. So you can't force her, can't impose on her to put herself in that situation where she's going to have a bad reputation. The Bryce says the same thing. He may imposes a neder on his wife that she shouldn't borrow, she shouldn't lend out. A sifter, a sieve, a mill, and a oven. He must divorce her and pay her ksib. Because she gives her a bad name in her among her neighbors, or in her neighborhood. Same thing. She herself made the neder. She doesn't want to have anything to do with all the friends. The man says, "Let's be social. Let's have friends." She made she's not going to borrow, not going to lend. No, she's not going to weave any nice clothes. She's not going to make any clothes for the children. He can, in this case, where she's the rebellious one, he can divorce her without paying suba because she's imposing a bad name for him on his neighbors. So whether it's her neighbors, if he's forcing her to have a bad reputation among her friends, that's a reason for divorce with ksuba. If she's forcing him to giving him a bad reputation among his friends, he can divorce her without ksuba.
All of these cases where he's the responsible one, I assume it's a normal rule that doesn't force him to give a get.
Right, that's right. Yeah. Or to pay the ksuba. It's all where the best enforcement, correct. If there's no issue, they agree to the divorce and all that. There's no fight. No contende. Whatever you want, I'll give you. Then there's no issue. Yeah, that's the whole thing. Yeah, exactly. The following people are divorced without getting a suba. For example, a woman, she goes against the Torah. We'll give examples shortly. The Yehudis, that's called Das Yehudis, means Jewish custom, Jewish practice. Meaning even if it's not in the Torah, but she doesn't zafir sich nicht like a nice Jewish girl. Those are reasons for divorce. What's Das Moshe? Example, Machilas Hashem and Musar. She gives them food, which is basically tevel, that she didn't take Trumas Ma'aser on. Umisham Shasanida, and she doesn't observe family purity. She doesn't observe that, and she's forcing him into that. We'll see why. Does he know about it? Does he not know about it? We'll talk about that in a minute. So she gives them food which is not which Truman Meiser have not been separated from it, or she doesn't go to the mikveh. Basically, she's in either below kotzel or challah, and she doesn't set apart challah. He also says take challah. Challah is a kind of truma. Also, you're eating something you shouldn't. Or she makes nadarim and she doesn't fulfill them. So if she's committing a sin all the time, that's going literally against the Torah. If she does those things, you're entitled to divorce her without a ksuba. What's Jewish practice that she's avoiding? She goes out with an exposed head. She doesn't cover her hair. The Tov B'Shuk, and she spins in the marketplace. We'll see, meaning she lives promiscuously. With the Beres and Kolaram, she flirts. She talks to everybody. If she curses his parents in front of him, more we'll talk about this, more details, right? She curses his parents. That's also goes against Jewish practice, and for those reasons, also he can divorce her without ksuba. Afa kolanis, even a woman who's got a loud voice. What do you mean? Like Shema de Beres, so basically she talks in her house, and people can hear her. She's got such a loud voice. We'll talk in more details. What are the things that she's saying? But she's embarrassing him, basically. She's talking loudly in the house about personal matters, and everybody hears her. Those are all things that go against Jewish practice, and he's entitled to divorce her without paying her ksuba. And the last things that we've described are not minat Torah that she's not going against the Torah, but she's going against Jewish practice, common Jewish practice. So what are we speaking about? The first things we said, she's going against the Torah. She gives him food which has not been tithed. If he knows about it, nifrosh, let him separate it himself. If he knows that the food wasn't true, she didn't know how to take, she didn't take Trumas and Maasros, so let him do it. And if he didn't know about it, then ayada. How is he going to bring up the issue? Like you say, what's going to happen? He's going to have a complaint and he's going to go to court and say, look, I want to give her a get without a ksuba. How does he know that? If he knows about it, why didn't he take Trumas and Maasros himself? And if he didn't know about it, why is there a case? There's no litigation. So let's read it.
He could have, but he's coming to.
Okay.
Because she's not doing it.
Oh, she's not doing it. Okay, but fine. So let him do it himself. Let him take care of it. If she doesn't know how to do it, let him do it. What if he would do it himself?
Yeah.
You could say, listen, so don't rely on her. She knows she doesn't know how to do it. He'll do it. Let him do it. What's the Umrale? She told him Ploni takes out, most of them take out the word coin. Ploni tikkenle. This rabbi or this person, he separated it for me. He fixed it. As I created a pile, and as I had somebody come and take Jerusalem Mises, and then when he asked that person, Vishtakach turns out that it was a lie. In other words, she fooled him. That's what's speaking about. So she says, yeah, I took Trumas Maasros and I had this guy do it for me. The rabbi came or somebody gave who knew how to take Trumas Maasros, and she's lying to him. So you can't rely on her anymore. And that's the case. So, or Rashi says, Nifrosh is not that he should do it, but he shouldn't eat it. Rashi says, so if he knew about it when he ate it, so if he knew about it when he ate it, he shouldn't have eaten it. And Nifrosh is not that he should separate it himself. Let's say the women always did it or took care of it, so don't eat it. So what's this thing? So don't eat the food. I'd say, well, if you can't eat the food, that's also a reason to come to court, right? But what are we speaking about? When he's taking her to court and he says that the Lashon mission was, she gives him to eat food which was not meiser, right? She gives him to eat, meaning he didn't know about it. She gave him to eat. If he knew about it, he wouldn't eat it. So the answer is that she fooled him. She said it was Trumas Maasros, and then after he ate it, it turns out it's not. She says, I can't live with a woman like that. Similarly, Masham Shaso Nida, and she is intimate with him while she's in Hechidim again. Nifrosh again. If she knows about it, let him not have beer with her. If he knows about it, so if he knows she's a Nida, he shouldn't have beer with her. If he doesn't know about it, you can rely on her. She says she's not a Nida, you can rely on her. How do we know a woman? We trust our wives, right? Just like you ate echadem bisurin. If you have a mashgiach who says that the food's kosher, you can rely on him. Same we rely on our wives. We don't know what's going on over there, with her body. She counts for herself. How do we know that we rely on her herself? She counts 7 days. Lo la'atzma. You learn from her for herself. She counts to herself, and we believe her. She says, "I'm not a nida anymore. I counted the 7 days, whatever, and went to the mikvah." You believe her. So if he knows about it, he shouldn't sleep with her. And if he didn't know about it, so what's the case? We rely on her. She says she's okay. So let's read it. The Amrle, she said, Ploni chacham tili esadam. I had a shaila, I had a ketem, I brought it to the rabbi, and he said that I'm okay. Va'azal shaila, and he went and he asked the rabbi. The man went and asked her, she's lying. So once it's turned out that she's a liar, you can't rely on her anymore. And that's why he can't live with her anymore. That's why he has to give her a get with no ksuba. V'boy seima. Even if he doesn't know that she's a nida, she's lying. She's saying he's not a nida. But the neighbors say, listen, we know she's walking around with nida clothes. When she comes to you, she comes home and she puts on the regular clothes. But when we see her every day, the same day, we see her with nida clothes. She's nida. Once that happens, if he was warned, he will get malchus for that because he's not allowed to. It's chayiv karas. Neighbors tell him that she's a nida, even though she's lying to him. So in a case like that, that's what we're talking about. That's where he brings her to court. Because neighbors follow local. If that's enough that he'll get malchus. If he knows that she's a nida based on the testimony of her neighbors, that's good enough. So here too, the neighbors tell him that she's a nida, and that and if he can't live with her under those circumstances, she's lying to him. That's basically the idea. The same thing as we said before. She's lying to him. So there's no option to get except to get divorced and don't pay her the ksuba. She doesn't set apart challah. She's not mafresh challah from the dough. Again, if he knows about it, nifresh, let him stay away from it, not eat it, or take it himself. But not nifresh here does not mean you can say nifresh, let him separate the challah. But Rashi said it meant lo yochel, he shouldn't eat it. Nifresh. If he doesn't know about it, how does he know about it to make a court case out of it to litigate against it? Let's read it. The Omerle, again, the same thing she said. She lied to him. She said, Ploni Gabal, this fellow who kneads the dough, Gabal, that guy, Tikami Asisa, he separated it from me. So he fixed it. He took care of it. Made it fit for eating. Basil Shailin, he went and asked him, so the point is, in these cases, we're saying, if the husband found out that the woman is lying to him over the Afrashas Trumas and Maestris or the Chala or Nida, then he has to divorce her. But that essence, or if she makes the Dharam and she doesn't come, we have a clause that Avon the Dharam, because of making the Dharam and then not keeping them, right? It says, Tishmor Basisa, right? That you're not, you shouldn't, it's better not to, you won't be punished for it. But Motzos Vasecha Tishmor Basisa, you have to keep it. And for the sin of not keeping, of not fulfilling your vows, children will die. Shnemar. Pasuk says in Kehelis, don't allow your mouth to cause your skin to sin. And the pasuk ends up because Hashem will get angry at you. And the pasuk ends off and destroy the work of your hands. Rashi brings down the end of that pasuk. Some Gemaras probably have it. My Gemara doesn't. But what is the handiwork of a person? What is the work of his hands? So Achman al-Islam, that's a valid reason to get divorced, not give her ksuba. Because if she makes an adarim and doesn't keep, you might say, what does he care? If he's eating the wrong food that's not from some maestris, or he's sleeping with Indian, he's himself a sinning. But if she doesn't keep her an adarim, so why is it, it's not so, doesn't affect him so badly. It's her, she's going to be the one in trouble. The answer is because children can die from some of it, for that reason. Nachman says, you see it from here, Lashavi Kesi Espanechem. For in vain I smote your children, Lashav al Iskesha, for lying and keeping a netter and then not, making a netter and not keeping it, Rahman's son, children will be destroyed. Tanya Rav Meir used to say, he had a solution. He says, you don't have to divorce your wife. Mishnah said, these cases, if she doesn't keep nida, she lies about these things, she doesn't keep nida, she doesn't keep her nadarim, etc., trumas and maestris, you should divorce her. Rav Meir says, I've got a solution. Where the first of the widest lines and near the bottom of the Gemara. Tanya Rav Meir Omer. Then becomes, if your wife makes nadar, makes vows, and she doesn't fulfill them, she doesn't keep them, Yasser v'yadirena. He should go back and impose another netter on her. Make a netter again. How is that going to fix it? Make her make another, and she doesn't keep the first one. Why will she keep the second one? How is that going to repair the situation? How's it going to have mend it? He should go back, and what he should do is he should provoke her to make another netter. She should make the netter. They should teach her before him that she should make a netter in front of him, for law, and then he'll break it. In other words, if he makes right, if he knows that she's so the other ones, okay, let's say no. What he's saying is that he say the other ones. Let's say you'll go to the rabbi, and the rabbi will annul them. Let's say you get around it, but let's say he knows that he's trying to help her do tshuva. He's trying. Okay, fine. I know you made Nadar until now. What's the whole idea with these things? Once you saw that she's lying to him about Nida or about the Chala, he can't trust her anymore. So here's a way around it. Instead of saying, I can't trust you anymore with the Nadar and he doesn't want his kids to die, I'll tell you what, okay, the old ones we took care of, it won't happen again because now he provokes her to make a netter, and every time she makes the netter, provoke him to make the netter in front of him, and he'll break it. They said to Meir, you can't live with a snake in a basket. In other words, if she is wont to make the darim all the time, that's not an answer. You make the netter in front of me and he'll break the netter. She said, you make the darim all the time. Maybe he won't hear, whatever. You can't live that way. That's what they answered him. Tanya Rav Yehuda gave a solution to the challah situation the same way. Tanya Rav Yehuda, he knows that she doesn't set apart the challah. Yachser bi'afrish achareha. Okay, so he should do it, right? That's what he says. That's the solution. The solution is that he'll be mafresh the challah, like we said before, right? If you know that she didn't do it, let him do it. You can't. It's like you say, I know she doesn't keep kosher, but I'll be careful. If she doesn't keep kosher, it's hard to live with a person who doesn't keep kosher because you can't always check every little thing, and it's hard to live with a snake in a basket. If she's a snake, you can't live that way. Wait, so let's just finish the one who learns what Rav Yehuda said. Rav Yehuda says even something like mafresh challah. No, she puts food on the table every day, which you can't eat. We'll call that trait. She wasn't mafresh challah. And I have a solution for you. You just take care of it yourself. So the one who learns Rabbi Yehuda's solution in the case of the challah, kol shkanach, certainly the first case, because the first case is a case of nadarim. Nadarim, presumably she doesn't make nadarim as often as the challah. Mafresh challah was your mafresh challah from dough, bread, which all people in those days ate. They didn't have gluten intolerant people in those days, right? Everybody ate, that was the basic food, bread and water, bread and wine, whatever, bread, meat, and wine. So if you can find the solution for the bread, you can find the solution for the nadarim also. Provoke her and break the nadar in front of her. But if you say what? I have a solution for the nadarim. But this one with the challah, zimna demikra rachel, sometimes lead it by mistake. In other words, the challah is something that happens every day. If she's not mafresh challah, it's very hard for you to make sure that that you're taking care of it, because it's something you're eating all the time, right? There's food there every day. You might make a mistake and eat it. So he might say the Rav Meir's solution is a good solution for an oderis, for a girl who's making the dharm all the time. But so you say, I'll provoke her to make the dharm in front of you, and you'll break it because it doesn't happen that often. But challah, she's not mafresh challah. She gives you tray food to eat every day that you can't do. But if you hold it on the tray food of Yehuda's solution, so he would hold certainly the solution of the nadarim would also work.
I don't
Yeah.
understand what's going on.
Yeah.
He can divorce her whenever he wants. We're trying to convince him not to divorce her, and then we're saying, no, we won't convince him because she's not a good person.
That's the argument. That's the
He can
argument.
divorce her whenever he wants.
Yeah, but he has to give it a get. He has to give it a ksuba. The point is,
This is all about.
this is all right to avoid the get and the ksuba, right? Rav Meir and Rav Yehuda were trying to avoid. Instead of us, they were trying to avoid the get and the ksuba and having to give a ksuba. It was marriage counts, right? And they said, no, you can't live that way. It's too difficult, and therefore he's entitled to divorce. The question is he's trying to avoid the ksuba.
The best is saying to him, no.
He's avoiding. It's not just he's avoiding, and he's trying to avoid the ksuba, but also the Gemara is telling you that even if he wants to stay with her, he should. Right? If a person, he says, if she goes against those things, he should divorce her and not give the ksuba. Obviously, there are certain cases where we said before, he doesn't have to give her the ksuba, right? Or he has to give her the ksuba if he imposes all kinds of stuff. But these kind of things, he can divorce without ksuba. He can always divorce her whenever he wants, Torah. Correct. If he wants to divorce her. But here he was trying to look for a solution. Rav Meir was trying to say, you know what? We'll have a bit of a solution. You don't have to really, right, for the ksuba, and maybe also right to he won't give. But I have a solution, so he doesn't have to divorce her and give her if the problem is a problem that he divorces her from that, then certainly he doesn't have to ksuba. The solution is, like you say, is more marriage counseling. Right. He could do this to avoid the whole situation. Of course, he could always give her the get, but he has to give her a ksuba.
So the solution is the
Rav Meir Review's solution is that they should stay married and not have a problem. Right. Because it's not that solution is not going to give a solution that he should divorce her and not give her the ksuba. Because how's that going to help? I mean, he's trying to say you stay with her, provoke her and get rid of the nadarim that way, or you take the challah yourself. So if you take the challah yourself, you don't have a problem. He's trying to do the marriage counseling, and they said you can't live that way. What is Jewish practice? This is not presumably Torah, right? This is stuff that the Jewish practice. So these things are also reasons for divorce without a ksuba. Remember, ksuba we hold basically is rabbanan. So you can, and the right, you can give her a ksuba whenever he wants, but they get without a ksuba if she avoids regular Jewish practice. She goes out with a exposed head. Rosh Pura Daraisi. What do you mean? She goes out with an exposed head. Isn't it Torah? Jasiva Paras Rosha Isha. By the Sota, we say we embarrass her and we remind her of what she did and we expose her hair. But Tanra Bishmuel, from here you see Ashar Lebrosis Rosh. You see from here a warning they shouldn't go out with an exposed head. So isn't that Torah? Why do you say it's Das Yehudis? It's Jewish practice. Isn't it Torah? More no. Doraisa calls a shapadam. If she puts even a basket on her head, they used to have these baskets which covered up some of the hair but left some of it exposed, and there was room on top. They would put their needles and stuff like that. The women would walk like you see the Arab women walk with all their stuff on top of their head, like a basket. They wore a basket. So Minarai that's good enough. In other words, you shouldn't go out totally exposed. If she has like some sort of covering, that's good enough. Das Yehudis, I feel kosanami. But The Jewish practice is even that's not good enough. You have to. That's also she should have more of a covered hair. And there were times for many times Jewish history, not just married women like the minig is today, when all women went out with their heads covered. So he said like this: if she wears the basket, then there's no issue of purosh. We just said that even if she has a basket on her head, the basket head takes away the doraisa. The Rabbanan, or at least the Jewish practice is that's no good. Rabbi Yochanan says that if she has the basket, that there's no issue of rosh puros. What are you talking about? If she's walking in the marketplace, das yudasi. You just said that she's over on das yudasi. She's going against Jewish practice by wearing such a basket. And so how could you say that there's no problem? There's no issue of rosh perua if she has a basket. What do you mean there's no issue? You just said in the shuk, she walks around with a basket that's over on das yudasi. Maybe she's in her own courtyard. No Jewish girl, she can't even live with her husband. Even in front of her husband, she has to have a covered hair, and in front of her own chatzam rabaya. You're right. In her own house, in her own chutzah, in her own privacy of her own, within her own fences, let's call that, she doesn't have to have her hair covered. In the shuk, the basket's not good enough. Here we're talking about if she's walking in a mavui, which is semi-private, it's not a public area, then a basket is good enough. The we have these different hugim, since then about covering the hair. What is Jewish practice? The and she spins in the marketplace. What do you mean? I'm Rabbi Mashmuel. The maras are a sel b'nei adam. What happens is if she's spinning in the shuk while she's moving her hands, she's exposing her arms, and that's considered immoral. Rav Chisda Amar, says in the name of V'tava vered keneged paneh. While she's spinning, like the rose-colored yarn it extends down. Paneh, different pshatim of the Barash. This paneh means it goes down to her pubic area. In other words, a paneh shalmata. So like she's hinting. It's a way of it's an acting in a promiscuous manner by causing people to look in that direction. With the Barasim she speaks to everybody. She's flirting. She's flirting with boys. So a woman like that who flirts or does things, exposes herself in the street, things like that, that's considered going against Jewish practice. I was once following a book in the street. I saw an Arab woman. She was sitting in the street. She was spinning. She had her spindle over there. And she was spinning. She also had this kind of a yarn or a thread exposed down to her waist area. Even the Chazazinan, once he saw them, once Rav Ukva saw them, or the Chazazinan, once she saw us, even the Chazazinan, she saw us, and she stopped spinning with her spindle. Shadisa, and she threw it on the floor. Amarli, she said to me, Ulam, young man, give me my spindle. She saw me like she was seducing him in a way, right? She was like playing with her spindle there, and she threw it. She said, "Oh man, can you pick it up for me?" She was like starting to flirt with him. Amar bar Rav Ukva Milsa. Rav Ukva said something about that situation. He said something about that situation. In other words, he likened that to one of the cases in our Mishnah. My Amar, what did he say? So my Amar, but what did he say about that situation? Rabbi Amar Tav B'Shuk Amar Ba. He said that's the case of Tav B'Shuk that Mishnah was speaking about, where she spins, she's spinning stuff in the market that the Mishnah said that's over al das Yudas, that goes against Jewish practice. Rabbanan Army, the rabbi said Medaberes Kol Adam Amar Ba. He said no, that's the case of flirting with men. It doesn't. What was Rav Ukva likening that case with the Arab woman to? Both cases are mentioned in our Mishnah of cases that she goes against Jewish practice. She's spinning stuff in the street, sewing stuff in the street, or she is flirting. Even somebody who curses his parents in front of him, that also goes against Jewish practice. It's not just cursing, not literally cursing the parents in front of the son. Her husband is the son, right? She's cursing her in-laws, her father-in-law, her mother-in-law, not just that little case where she cursed parents in front of him, but even if she cursed his parents in front of his children, the grandchildren. Right? The Simonach, the Simon is Ephraim and Menashe, Keruv and Shimon and Yili. When Yaakov said to Yosef, Ephraim and Menashe, your children, my grandchildren, will be like Reuben and Shimon. So you remember, we're talking about grandchildren over here. That's just the Simon. Remember that we're talking about the grandparents, the grandson. And she cursed the grandparents in front of the grandchildren. Amar Rabba. Rabba explained, Rabbi Yehuda said, Domerle, for example, she said to these children, Nichla Aryeh Lasaba, may a lion eat up your grandfather, Babe, in front of the son. She said, may a lion eat up your grandpa. Babe, no shell bal Omerskem. Remember, means in front of his son, meaning she told his son, maybe it's her son or maybe it's her stepson. She told her son, may a lion eat up your grandfather. So it doesn't mean literally the husband may not have been there. I mean, that's what it means. We say we curse out the father in front of her husband. That doesn't mean literally, Rashi says, doesn't mean literally the husband was there. But even if you curse out your father-in-law in front of the grandchildren, that's also what we're talking about over here. That's over das bal, over al das Yudas, and you can divorce her without the ksuba. Now, in these cases, Urban, you're right. So in the case of Das Moshe, so you have an obligation to divorce her because she is causing you to go against the Torah. If she's a nidan, doesn't tell you right, she makes the food not kosher. How can you live with somebody? In these other cases, whereas Rosh Hashanah, these other cases where she goes against Das Yehudis, is he forced to divorce her? If she's cursing his parents, things like that, or is it just simply that if he chooses to divorce her, then he doesn't have to give the ksuba? Amar Rav Yehuda Mishmul, we said that one. Michael, what do you mean by a woman with a loud voice? Amar Rav Yehuda Mishmul, the mashmas kola al iske tashmish. They're arguing. They're having some issue over intimacy. Husband and wife are arguing over intimacy, and other people are hearing this discussion. That's embarrassing to the husband. And they're having a loud argument, and she's got this loud voice, etc. And everybody hears about it. That's a horrible thing. Maslis Natana in the Brisa, they learn she can only have bia. She can only be intimate with great pain. She's not a woman who normally has bia, or she can't have bia without great pain. And Shetashmash Kashalov, it's like she cries out. It's embarrassing to him. So when why isn't it listed by the cases of blemishes, that if a woman is found to have blemishes, we're going to talk about that later on soon, next few days. She goes out without ksuba if he didn't know about it. He didn't know about it, right. She has a medical condition that he didn't know about. We'll talk about that. We're going to see that in the next mission. We're going to start talking about it soon. So why isn't it listed by the woman? If you're talking about this kind of a condition, he didn't know that she can't have bia. So why are you talking about that he can divorce her without a get, without a ksuba in our case, where basically she's not following Jewish practice? She's got a loud voice and she's embarrassing him all the time. This is simply a difficult medical condition. So why isn't it listed by the moment, by the blemishes listed in the Mishnah later on? The better say that we're talking about over here is either we said the kolaris, like Yehuda Shmuel says, mashma kolis ke tashmish, right? That's what we're talking about. We're talking about where she just screaming at him about intimacy issues, which is embarrassing when the neighbors hear about that. That's what we're talking about over here. We're not talking about the case where she has a physical or medical condition which prevents her from having bia in a normal way. So we mentioned she makes nadarim. We're talking about nadarim, Madar Sishto, the nadarim that she makes or that he makes, or she makes and he confirms, or he made nadarim, how they're chal. Let's say he betroths a woman on the condition she'ein nadarim. Listen, I'll marry you, not just Kedas Moshe Yisrael, but almanas that there's no nadarim. You don't have any nadarim, any pre-existing. Remember, a man can break a nadarim, as we'll see, only if he hears it that day, right? But if she had nadarim on her already that weren't broken by her father or by anybody, she has nadarim. She makes a neder that she's not eating this food or whatever, and he makes that condition nadarim, and then it turns out there are nadarim, ain't a mukadeshes, not fulfilled. The Tanai wasn't fulfilled, right? I'm marrying you. Did you have any nadarim on you? No, I don't have any. So she lied to him. So the kedushin was under wrong premises. So it's not a kedushin. It's like you make any other Tanai in the kedushin. Marry Almanas that you have $1 million in the bank. She says, yes, I have $1 million in the bank, and she lied about it, non-kedushin. Kansa stam v'nimtza ledar. Let's say he married her stam, and it turns out she didn't have any nadar, and she had nadar on her. So here we say she has to leave without a ksuba because it's considered she fooled him. Now the Gemara is going to discuss: are we speaking about the same case where he got engaged to her almanas that there's no nadarim, right? And he didn't find out right away after betrothal. Then he consummated with her. He had the nisuin. Are we speaking about that case? And then it turned out that there were nadarim, that he still has to give her a get. Teitchiv shlobik suba mean, but you still need a get, right? Or is this a different case? Even if you consummated with her, well, it was under false premises, and therefore there's no kedushin, and you don't need a get, right? And konsastam means a different case where you didn't mention anything about nadarim in advance, but he got married to her and thought everything is okay. It turns out she had nadarim. So then most people wouldn't like that. He has to give her a get, but he doesn't have to give her the ksuba. The kedusha is a good kedusha, but he has to give her a get, but there's no ksuba because there was an understanding there. She should have revealed that to him up front. So that's going to be a shiloh that we're going to discuss in tomorrow's Gemara. Tomorrow's going to discuss that issue. Is the second case? It's very clear. If you're Mekadosh and Isha on the condition she didn't have any dharma on her, and then after Kedushin you found out that she did, it's not a condition. The condition wasn't fulfilled. Very simple. Kansa Stam, is that speaking about the same case where he got engaged on the condition there was no condition? But as we're going to see, Rav holds, but when he marries her, he doesn't want the bia to be sinus, even though he made the condition when they got engaged. But if he consummated, it's a good. You need a get. It's a good marriage, except he doesn't have to give her a ksuba. Or no, even if he consummated, he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to give her a get because it's not a marriage at all. And that's what we were talking about. And it's not a marriage at all. Takes ksuba, but you don't need a get either. Gemara's mashma. Mishnah says takes mashma get. You do need. The Gemara is going to ask on this on that opinion that we're talking about a separate case, takes ksuba, or that it's the same case rather. That kansa stam v'nimsal adarm takes ksuba, right? If we're talking about the first case, takes ksuba, that's Rav's opinion. Shmuel's opinion is no. That the mekadosh isha and then kansa stam, you still don't need a ksuba, a get. You still don't need a get because it goes based on, even when he consummated with the condition that he made when he did the kedushin, which is on manasdish's no nadarim, and therefore you don't need a get. The Gemara is going to talk about that. Let's say he marries on the condition that she has no blemishes, but and it turns out there are blemishes and because she didn't fulfill the condition. Let's say he married a stam, and then you found out that there were women. You need a get, but there were, but there's no ksuba because no normal person doesn't want to live that way. Call a muman a post in the Quran and post mission. What muman are we talking about? What? Yeah.
Marry your son. He doesn't have to.
He doesn't have to, right? He doesn't have to. If he wants to, right. Now we talked about before simple. Remember we talked about later on. That's the reason why the Kohen can't give a truma until he doesn't have to give a truma during the engagement because maybe they'll find a mum and then it was on the false condition. That was under the assumption here that he married her under the condition that there were no women. It turned out there were women. So then it's not a marriage, ain't a mekudeshes. But if he married her stam, and he found a woman, he objects to that. He has to give her a get, but he doesn't have to do a sibah. Call a woman a post. In other words, normally a person wouldn't want to marry, wouldn't want to have a woman with a mum, so he doesn't have to give a sibah. Call a woman a post. Which woman are we talking about? Any woman that passes by a Kohen passes by an Isha also. In other words, we're going to talk about what those women are. We'll see that later on. Now, the same Mishnah we have over here is also mentioned in Kedushin. Here he says, look at the first two lines of the Mishnah. And she has nadarim. What does it do with ksubas? That's an issue in kedushin. If you make a t'nai in kedushin, you make a condition. Marrying yomanas that you don't have any nadarim. Marry yomanas, you have $1 million. I marry yomanas that you don't have any family, whatever the condition was. The condition wasn't fulfilled. It's not kedushin. The same issue is mentioned over there. The answer is hocha ksubas isruchai. Hearing ksubas, we needed. Tell me the second case. That's maybe a condition, a continuation of the first case or the second case, as we'll see in tomorrow's Gemara. But there we talk about Ksuba. So we mentioned we bring down the whole mission, including the first case, because Tana Kedushin, Atu Ksubas because of Ksubas. Hassam, the main issue is Kedushin over there in Kedushin, Masechtas Kedushin. It's we need it for the issue of Kedushin. So Tana Ksubas, Atu Kedushin. So we mentioned the latter part that if you married her Stam and it turned out you had a Dharm, you don't have to give her Ksuba because of Kedushin. So therefore the mission is mentioned in both places. Amr Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Yosadek. Be'elu Dharm Amru. Which Nadarim are we speaking about? You say you married a woman, I'm asked that she has no Nadarim. What kind of Nadarim are we speaking about? So we're speaking about Nadarim of Inu Nefesh. Shelo Tocha Basar, she says that there's a condition she's not going to eat any meat. Well, how would you like you married a woman since she made a Nadarim, she's never going to have meat or drink wine. And there's no Pesach for her Nadarim. It's going to be very hard to get a. Why don't you say go to the Talmud Chacham and be matzah, right? You can have a solution like that. So again, with a woman who makes Nadarim like that, maybe you don't want to be with her. Or she's not going to adorn herself with nice clothing for him. All those are interesting. Bryce does the same thing. Things that have afflict her, things that are difficult to live with. She's not going to eat meat. She's not going to drink wine. She's not going to wear nice clothes. All those are in nefesh. Havibar Papa. So Rav Papa says, I got a problem over here. And when you say over here, the Nadarim that we're speaking about are the Nadarim of not eating meat, drinking wine, wearing nice clothes. In other words, things that a woman would make a woman despicable, repulsive on her husband. In which case are we speaking about? Are we talking about the first case where man said, I'm marrying you on condition that there's no Nadarim on you, right? So if he's speaking about that case, so Elam Aresha, keeping the covenant, since he objects to, I don't want any Nadarim. Marrying girl, I don't want to have any Nadarim. I don't care if she says I'm never going to visit Tel Aviv. That's the Nadarim I made. Tel Aviv is also to me, right? Whatever the condition was. I'm marrying on condition that there's no Nadarim. Since he objects to it, I feel called Milinam. Why do you talk about drinking wine and eating meat? Why only those? He married on the condition that there's no Nadarim. So why are you specifying only those? He says, I object to any Nadarim. Ella Seifa. Maybe it's going on the Seifa. And now we're assuming that the Seifa is a separate case. The Seifa meaning the second case, where he didn't marry under those conditions. He just married a woman. After they get married, it turns out she has all these Nadarim on her, right? Ella Seifa. That you can say that's the case we're speaking about. And now we're going with the idea that the Seifa is a separate case. But you need a get, right? You need a get, but okay. Rav Ashi Omer is going on the first case. What normal people object to, like she's not going to eat meat or drink wine, or not going to wear clothes, that is considered an objection. Right? So immediately come to Insha his objection is a valid objection. Immediately, she's something which normal people wouldn't object to. She's not going to go to Tel Aviv, or she's not going to do something like that. It's not considered his objection is not considered a good objection. So there's two ways to learn. Again, the second way to learn. The first way we said is that the Seifa is really a separate case, not a condition. That's going to get to the next question of Itmar. This is a preamble to tomorrow's Gemara. Kitchal time. Let's say he betrothed her on the condition that there's no Nadarim on her. The Kansa Stam, and then he married her Stam. When he consummated, he didn't say anything about that. He married he betrothed her on the condition that there's no Nadarim. Then he didn't check it out, or it wasn't revealed to him, and then he married her Stam. Rab Amr Tzrichim, he still need to get. Why? The Gemara is going to say, because a person doesn't want to make his bia snus. He's not going to have a bia. So if it turns out, even though he made that condition when he betrothed her, but he doesn't want his bia to be stam a bia of snus with not marriage. So when he consummated with her, he meant it for it to be a wedding anyway, and therefore he wanted the kedushin and the marriage to be a good marriage, and you need to get. Shmuel says no, ain't strict man to get. When he consummated her on the condition that he made when he made this must less like ain't the most be lost. So Rashi says in tomorrow's stuff that a person Shmuel doesn't hold to that idea. He made the condition when he betrothed that there's no Nadarim on her, and when he consummated, he had that same thing in mind, and therefore you don't need to get. So here's a big machlokes between Rav and Shmuel, and that leads us into tomorrow's Gemara, which is going to be on the podcast, and on Sunday we'll pick it up from about the 7th line on Ayin Dal. This is where tomorrow's the podcast will take you to, about the 7th line Nitmar Nami Amar Bacha on Ayin Dal Amar Aleph on Sunday in Mitzvah Shem.
Are we starting regular time?
Yes. I'm going to make an effort to start a regular time until Rosh Hashanah, And during Aseret Yemei Tshuva, we'll start at 5 in the morning, but I don't want to get into that now and confuse everybody. I don't want to confuse everybody the way we're being confused with